Most terrifying punishments in history. Impalement. What is impalement? Impalement is a method of execution where a sharp, long pole or stake is driven through a person's body and they are then displayed in public. When was it done? Impalement was most prevalent during the ancient and medieval periods. While it continued in some parts of the world until the 18th century, it was eventually banned and became obsolete. How was it done? A long wooden pole was taken. Often the tip was not made overly sharp, but kept somewhat blunt so that it would not puncture vital organs like the heart or lungs too quickly, which would cause an immediate death. The stake was usually inserted through the lower part of the body, the rectum. The victim's limbs were tied, and the weight of their own body was used to gradually push them onto the stake. The executioners were often highly skilled. They guided the stake through the body in a way that avoided the spine or heart. The stake was usually exit through the shoulder or the mouth. The stake was then firmly planted in the ground. Due to gravity, the victim's own body weight would cause them to slide further down the pole. Death eventually occurred after several days due to excessive blood loss, shock, or infection. To whom was it done? Enemy soldiers or prisoners of war, thieves, bandits, or traitors, subjects who fought against Ottoman rulers, a practice frequently employed by Vlad. Ling Chi. What is Ling Chi? Ling Chi was a method of execution practiced in ancient China, where small pieces of flesh were sliced from a convict's body while they were still alive. Why was this punishment given? It was not handed out for common crimes. It was reserved only for the most heinous offenses: high treason, rebellion, or conspiracy against the emperor; patricide, matricide, killing one's parents or senior family elders; mass murder, killing many people at once. How was it performed? This was the most terrifying aspect of the punishment. The process was highly systematic. Public display. The convict was tied securely to a wooden post in a public area. Sequential slicing. The executioner would begin slicing pieces of flesh from various parts of the body using an extremely sharp knife. Usually the chest, shoulders, or thighs were targeted first. Prolonging life. The executioner's main goal was to ensure the victim did not die immediately. They would attempt to minimize blood loss so the victim remained conscious to feel the agony of every cut. Number of slices. The number of cuts was determined by the severity of the punishment. Records show it could range from 10 slices to as many as 3,000. The final blow. When the body was nearly a skeleton or the victim was fading from unbearable pain, death was confirmed by a stab to the heart or decapitation. When was it prevalent? Origin: approximately the 10th century, 900 AD. Abolition: the Qing dynasty officially banned the practice on April 24, 1905. It remained in use until the early 20th century. Note, before the practice was abolished in 1905, some Western tourists captured photographs of the process, which remain preserved today as some of history's most gruesome evidence. The Iron Maiden. What is the Iron Maiden? It is a large human-shaped iron coffin or box. It features a door at the front, and the interior walls are lined with long, sharp iron spikes or thorns. When was it prevalent? The existence of the Iron Maiden was first recorded in Nuremberg, Germany in the late 18th century. However, it is most famous as a symbol of the cruelty of the Middle Ages. How is it done? The accused would be forced to stand inside the iron box. As the front door was slowly shut, the sharp internal spikes would begin to pierce various parts of the prisoner's body. The spikes were positioned so they would not immediately pierce vital organs like the heart or lungs. Consequently, the prisoner would not die instantly but would suffer a slow, agonizing death through extreme blood loss and torture. The walls of the device were very thick, ensuring that no one outside could hear the victim's screams. Whom was it used on? History mentions this punishment being reserved for traitors, women suspected of witchcraft, and serious criminals. However, interestingly, many historians believe it was not actually a real torture device from the Middle Ages, but rather a fictional object created in the 18th century to attract museum visitors. The gridiron. What was it? A gridiron was essentially a large iron frame or grate, similar in appearance to a modern barbecue grill. The condemned person was placed on top of it, and a charcoal fire was lit underneath. It was a method of slowly roasting a person alive. When was it prevalent? The practice began around the 3rd century AD and continued through the late Middle Ages in various parts of Europe. How was the execution carried out? A large iron grate or lattice was mounted on 4 legs. The victim was stripped naked or lightly clothed and bound tightly to the iron bars with chains to prevent any movement. Instead of a large, quick flame, glowing charcoals were placed beneath the grate. This ensured the body did not burn to ash instantly, but instead underwent a slow roasting process. Executioners carefully controlled the heat to ensure the victim did not die quickly. The torture could last for hours until the vital organs eventually failed. Who were the victims? The most famous historical example is Saint Lawrence. In 258 AD, under the reign of Roman Emperor Valerian, he was sentenced to this death. Legend has it that while being burned on one side, Lawrence mockingly told his executioners, "This side is done, turn me over and eat." Many other religious martyrs and traitors were also executed using this method. Catherine wheel. What is Catherine wheel? The Catherine wheel or breaking wheel stands as an extreme symbol of pain and brutality. Why it was done? This punishment was primarily reserved for the most serious crimes in society, such as murder or homicide, robbery, treason, betrayal of the country, religious rebellion. How it was done? The primary tool for this punishment was a large, heavy wooden wheel, similar to a cartwheel. The process was a nightmare. First, the prisoner was laid on the ground on their back, and their arms and legs were spread out and tied securely. The executioner would then use a heavy iron bar or a wheel to strike the victim's arms and legs with great force. The goal was not to kill the person immediately, but to shatter their bones into pieces. Once the bones were broken, the body became limp. The executioner would then weave the victim's limbs through the spokes of the wheel. The wheel was placed atop a tall pole. The victim would remain there in agonizing pain, often surviving for several days. Death eventually occurred due to dehydration or shock. Occasionally, crows or vultures would pick at the flesh of the person while they were still alive. Who and when? While it originated in the ancient Roman Empire, it was most widely practiced in medieval Europe, especially in Germany, France, Russia, and Sweden. Executioners carried out the sentence under the orders of local kings or the church.